Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Growing up in a house where my dad left for work at 5 a.m. and my mom was perpetually sleep deprived from working double shifts at the hospital, I learned early that mornings were sacred quiet time. But I also learned that life doesn't stop for anyone's sleep schedule. When I moved into my current apartment 2 years ago, it felt like I'd finally found my sanctuary. The rent was reasonable, the neighborhood was safe, and my morning routine could flourish undisturbed. I'd wake up at 7, brew fresh coffee using beans I ground myself, and head off to my job at the marketing firm downtown. Simple, peaceful, predictable. The apartment next to mine had been empty for most of my time here. Occasionally I'd hear the landlord showing it to potential tenants, but nobody stuck around long. The building is older, the walls are thin, and let's face it, city living isn't for everyone. I actually enjoyed the quiet. That all changed 4 months ago when he moved in. The first few weeks were normal. I'd hear the occasional footstep, some furniture being moved around, the usual sounds of someone settling in. I even considered introducing myself with a plate of cookies or something neighborly like that. Thank God I didn't. The notes started appearing about 3 weeks after he moved in. I came home from work one Tuesday to find a piece of paper that had been slipped under my door. In angry block letters, it read, "Some people are trying to sleep." No signature, no apartment number, no polite introduction or explanation, just an accusation. I genuinely had no idea what I could be doing wrong. I'm not loud, I don't play music, I don't have parties, I don't even watch TV at high volume. I racked my brain trying to figure out what this person was complaining about. The second note came a week later. The coffee grinder is excessive. That's when it clicked. My coffee routine. Every morning at 7:30 I grind enough beans for 1 cup of coffee. The grinder runs for maybe 30 seconds, 45 at most. It's not even that loud. I've timed it, tested it, compared it to other appliances. It's quieter than most blenders, vacuum cleaners, even some microwaves. But apparently, this was ruining someone's life. I considered knocking on doors to figure out who was leaving these notes, but something about the aggressive tone made me hesitate. Instead, I decided to give this person the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they worked nights. Maybe they had a medical condition. Maybe they were just having a rough time adjusting to apartment living. So I tried grinding my coffee the night before. Pre-ground coffee tastes terrible, but I figured I could sacrifice my morning ritual for the sake of neighborly peace. That lasted exactly 1 week. The third note was even more hostile. Still too loud in the mornings. Some of us have real jobs that require sleep. Real jobs? I work 50 hours a week in marketing. I pay my rent, my taxes, and my bills just like everyone else. But apparently my job wasn't real enough to justify 30 seconds of coffee grinding at 7:30 in the morning. That's when I decided to stop accommodating this anonymous neighbor's demands. I went back to grinding fresh coffee every morning, 7:30 a.m. sharp, just like before. If someone had a problem with legal, reasonable morning activities, they could come talk to me like an adult instead of leaving passive-aggressive notes. The fourth note arrived 2 weeks later, and this one crossed a line. Final warning. Fix this or I'll get the landlord involved. A threat over coffee beans. I was annoyed, but I figured the landlord would laugh this off. Our lease clearly states that quiet hours end at 6 a.m. on weekdays and 7 a.m. on weekends. Grinding coffee at 7:30 was well within my rights. When the formal noise complaint landed on our landlord's desk, he called me directly. He asked about the noise complaint and mentioned something about a coffee grinder. I explained that I grind coffee beans every morning around 7:30 and it takes less than a minute. He said 7:30 was completely reasonable and told me not to worry about it. Some people just like to complain. He said the wall banging started the next week. Every time I used any kitchen appliance, any appliance at all, this person would bang on the wall like they were trying to break through it. Microwave? Bang, bang, bang. Blender for a smoothie? Bang, 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 bang. Even the coffee maker beeping when it finished brewing would trigger a symphony of wall percussion. One morning, I was making toast, literally just putting bread in a toaster, and the banging was so violent I thought something had fallen off my kitchen wall. That's when I realized this person wasn't just unreasonable, they were unhinged. But here's the thing about growing up in a chaotic household. You learn how to handle bullies, and you learn that sometimes the only way to deal with unreasonable people is to be unreasonable right back. I remembered my college opera class. Back then, I'd taken it as an elective because I needed arts credits and figured singing would be easier than painting or sculpting. Turns out I actually had a decent voice. My professor even suggested I consider switching majors, but I was already committed to marketing and didn't want to start over. I still had my old songbook somewhere in my closet. The next morning, instead of grinding coffee at 7:30, I stood in my living room at 6 a.m. right when quiet hours officially ended, and began vocal warm-ups. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Up and down the scales, nice and clear, projecting from my diaphragm just like my professor taught me. The banging on the wall started immediately, but I ignored it. I had every legal right to practice music during daytime hours. After scales, I moved on to actual songs. I started with something simple, a few folk songs, some basic arias I remembered from class. My voice was rusty, but muscle memory kicked in faster than I expected. The banging got more frantic. By the end of the week, I was remembering why I'd actually enjoyed opera class. There's something powerful about filling a space with your voice, about letting sound pour out of you without holding back. It felt therapeutic. The angry neighbor apparently did not find it therapeutic. 7 days into my new morning routine, someone started pounding on my front door at 6:15 a.m. A voice from outside demanded I open the door right now. I asked who it was. The voice said I knew exactly who it was and to stop that horrible noise. I told them I didn't know who they were and asked them to identify themselves. The voice said they were my neighbor, the one I'd been torturing for weeks. I opened the door to find a man in his 40s wearing pajamas and the angriest expression I'd ever seen on a human face. His hair was sticking up in every direction. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was practically vibrating with rage. He told me I needed to stop the singing nonsense immediately. I greeted him and said I was just practicing music. I mentioned it was wonderful to finally meet him since I've been getting anonymous notes but had no idea who was leaving them. He told me not to play dumb and accused me of doing this on purpose. I asked what I was doing on purpose and explained I was pursuing my passion for music. Music is meant to be shared, I told him. He said this was harassment and that he worked nights and needed sleep. I said I understood that must be difficult, but I was practicing during legal daytime hours. I suggested he try earplugs or a white noise machine. He said I was perfectly fine grinding coffee quietly until he asked me to stop. I pointed out that he never actually asked me anything. He left threatening notes under my door and banged on walls like a crazy person. If he'd just knocked and introduced himself like a normal neighbor, we could have worked something out. He said he was calling the landlord again. I told him that was absolutely his right and wished him a great day. I closed the door and went back to my scales. He did call the landlord again. This time our landlord was less amused. He called me and said he was getting tired of dealing with complaints from my neighbor. He asked about the singing. I explained that I'd taken up practicing music in the mornings during legal hours, and I had every right to pursue artistic activities in my own apartment. He asked how long this went on. I said usually about 30 to 45 minutes, the same amount of time most people spend getting ready for work. He asked if this was every morning. I confirmed it was Monday through Friday and that I like to start my day with something beautiful. There was a long pause. He said he couldn't tell me not to practice music during the day. That would be like telling someone they couldn't watch TV or listen to the radio. He just asked me to keep it reasonable. I assured him I was very mindful of noise levels and timing. That conversation happened 3 weeks ago. My neighbor hasn't filed any more complaints, but he also hasn't stopped banging on the walls whenever I use kitchen appliances. So I've decided to expand my repertoire. This morning I started learning Wagner. Those pieces are incredibly long and wonderfully dramatic. The ring cycle alone could keep me busy for months. My voice has genuinely improved over these past few weeks I'm hitting notes I couldn't reach in college, and my breath control is better than ever. I might even consider taking formal lessons again. My neighbor has started wearing noise-canceling headphones around the apartment complex. I can tell because I've seen him in the hallway, and he doesn't respond when I cheerfully say good morning. I still grind fresh coffee beans every day at 7:30, and every morning at 6 a.m. sharp, I practice scales, areas, and whatever challenging piece I'm working on that week. It happened when I was working at this small chain store in the mall. You know the type, clothes and accessories, nothing fancy. I'd been there for 2 years and worked my way up to part-time shift supervisor. It basically meant I got to deal with all the headaches of management but still got paid like a regular employee. The store was pretty chill before this happened. My old manager was cool and trusted us to make good decisions. If customers were still shopping a few minutes past closing, we'd let them finish up. If someone had a problem, we could bend the rules a little to make it right. Basic customer service stuff. Then our old manager got transferred, and in walked Karen. Yeah, that's what I'm calling her because she earned it. Karen came in like she was running a military operation instead of a retail store. First day, she gathered all of us together for this big speech about how things were going to change. She told us that from now on, we were going to follow corporate policy to the letter. No exceptions, no shortcuts, no personal judgment calls. Everything had to be done exactly how the handbook said it should be done. At first, I thought this might not be so bad. Structure can be good, right? But then the problems started. Corporate had been messing with our hours constantly. One week we'd close at 9, next week 8:30, then back to 9. Sometimes they'd change it midweek. The person who was supposed to update the hour sign on our front door was always behind, so customers would show up thinking we were open when we weren't, or vice versa. I've been using common sense to handle this. If the posted hours said 9 but our schedule said 8, and I saw customers still browsing at 8, I'd keep the doors open for a few extra minutes. Not hours, just enough time for people to finish up and check out. Seemed like basic customer service to me. But Karen had other ideas. One Tuesday afternoon, she pulled me aside after I'd stayed open an extra 10 minutes for a customer who was trying to find a birthday gift for her daughter. She said we needed to talk about my closing procedures. When I asked what was up, she told me I wasn't being consistent with the schedule. She said that last night I had closed at 8:10 when I was supposed to close at 8. I tried to explain that there was this mom looking for something specific for her kid's birthday, and she was almost done, so I figured it would be okay. But Karen cut me off and said she didn't want to hear my reasoning. She laid down the law right there. She said that from now on, she didn't care if there were 20 people in the store. If the schedule said close at 8, I had to close at 8. Lock the doors at 8 sharp. Don't use judgment. Follow the schedule no matter what. I tried to explain that sometimes customers needed a couple extra minutes, especially when corporate kept changing our hours and the door sign wasn't updated. She cut me off again. She said there were no exceptions, period. If I couldn't follow a simple schedule, maybe I wasn't supervisor material. The next day she sent me an email just to make sure I got the message. She actually wrote that I should not use discretion and follow the posted schedule exactly, all in bold letters. I saved that email, which turned out to be the smartest thing I did. For the next few weeks, I followed her rules exactly. Doors locked at closing time, no exceptions. I felt bad every time I had to tell customers to hurry up or leave, as what Karen had made it clear this was how she wanted things done. Then came that Friday night. The mall was doing some big promotional event, extended hours, special sales, the whole thing. Most stores were staying open until 10 or 11. Our store was packed with people shopping for the weekend, but our schedule still said 8 o'clock closing. At 7:55, I got on the intercom like always. I announced that the store would be closing in 5 minutes and asked shoppers to bring their items to the front counter. People looked confused. Through our windows, they could see other stores still busy with customers. A few people came up to ask if we were really closing. One customer asked if I was sure we were closing because everyone else was staying open late tonight. I told her sorry, but our schedule said 8 o'clock. At exactly 8 o'clock, I walked to the front doors and locked them. We had over 30 customers still inside. Some had full shopping carts, some were in the fitting rooms, others were still looking around. One customer asked if I was seriously closing right now. I told her yes, our schedule said 8 o'clock. She said she had all this stuff picked out and wanted to use the fitting rooms. I apologized but told her she would need to either check out now with what she had, or we'd have to ask her to leave. About half the customers just left their stuff and walked out. They were annoyed and I don't blame them. The other half rushed to check out, but some of them were so frustrated they changed their minds and left empty-handed too. The whole thing was a disaster. We probably lost hundreds of dollars in sales that night, but I had followed Karen's rules exactly. At 8:05, guess who showed up? Karen herself. She'd come to see how we were handling the big crowd from the mall event. Instead, she found the store dark and locked up tight. She started pounding on the door, and I let her in. She asked what was going on and why the store was closed. I told her our schedule said 8 o'clock closing. She said it was the mall's promotional night and there were customers everywhere. I said I knew that. We had over 30 people in here, but she had told me to close at 8 sharp no matter what. She said I should have used common sense. That's when I pulled out my phone and showed her the email she'd sent me. I asked if she meant like the email where she told me not to use discretion and to follow the posted schedule exactly. She tried to say that wasn't what she meant, that I should have called her, that I misunderstood. But it was all right there in writing. The next Monday, the district manager showed up. Turns out other stores in the mall had complained about us turning away customers during the promotional event. Karen tried to throw me under the bus, saying I'd made a poor judgment call. That's when I handed the district manager a printed copy of Karen's email, with her instruction to follow the posted schedule exactly highlighted in yellow. The district manager read it twice, then looked at Karen. He asked her if she had ordered her supervisor to close at the scheduled time regardless of circumstances, and then was upset that he followed her direct written orders. Karen stammered that it wasn't like that I should have known better. The district manager asked what I should have known to ignore her written instructions. Karen got a formal write-up that day. The district manager made it clear that supervisors were expected to use reasonable judgment, especially during special events. Karen never said another word to me about closing procedures. I work from home, which means I spend most of my days glued to my computer screen. My doctor keeps telling me I need to get outside more, so I've been making an effort to take walks around the neighborhood in the afternoons. It's a quiet street with families and kids who play outside regularly. I've lived here for about 3 years now, and while I keep to myself mostly, I know the neighbors well enough to wave and say hello. There's this woman who lives in the house with a pristine lawn and the keep off the grass signs everywhere. She's always been difficult. She once called the homeowners association because my garbage can was still out at 7 p.m. on trash day. Another time she complained to the city about my car being parked too close to her driveway, even though it was completely legal. Everyone on the block knows to avoid her if possible. So today I was taking my usual afternoon walk when I saw a group of kids playing with a soccer ball in the street. There were about 4 of them, maybe around 10 or 11 years old. They were just kicking the ball back and forth, laughing and having fun like kids should. I was walking past when one of the kids kicked the ball a little too hard, and it went flying into the difficult neighbor's front yard. The kids all froze. They knew whose yard it had landed in. One of the braver kids, a tall boy with messy brown hair, slowly walked up to the edge of her property line and politely called out, asking if he could get their ball back from her yard. No answer. The front door was closed and it looked like nobody was home. The kids huddled together, whispering about what to do. The boy said maybe she wasn't home and that he would just grab the ball real quick. The kid stepped onto the lawn and jogged over to where the ball had landed near some flower beds. He picked it up and was heading back when the front door suddenly swung open. The woman stormed out and demanded to know what he thought he was doing on her property. The kid stopped in his tracks, still holding the ball. He apologized and explained that their ball had accidentally gone into her yard and he was just getting it back. She screamed that he had no right to be on her property and that he was trespassing. The boy apologized again and politely asked if they could please just have their bull back. That's when things got ugly. This woman completely lost it. She walked across her lawn toward this kid who weighed maybe 80 pounds. She yelled that she was sick of kids thinking they owned the whole neighborhood. She reached out and shoved the kid hard in the chest. He stumbled backward and dropped the ball. The boy protested that she couldn't push him. She shouted that she could do whatever she wanted on her property and told him to get out before she called the police. The other kids were backing away, clearly scared. But the boy stood his ground and said he just wanted their ball back. That's when she completely snapped. She grabbed the kid by the shoulders and started shaking him while screaming at him not to talk back to her. I stepped forward and told her to stop right now. She looked up at me with pure rage in her eyes and told me to mind my own business. I said it was my business when I saw an adult attacking a kid and told her to let go of him. She released the boy, who immediately ran back to his friends. But instead of calming down, she turned her attention to me. She said I had no idea what I was talking about and that these kids were nothing but trouble. I told her that the kids had asked politely for their ball back and there was no reason to put her hands on that child. I pulled out my phone and started dialing. I said that I was calling the police because what she had just done was assault. That's when she completely lost her mind. She charged at me like some kind of wild animal and grabbed a fistful of my hair, yanking my head down hard. She demanded that I give her my phone. She was trying to drag me by my hair while reaching for my phone with her other hand. The pain was incredible, and I could feel strands of hair being ripped out. I had no choice but to defend myself. I balled up my fist and punched her as hard as I could in the stomach. She immediately let go of my hair and crumpled to the ground, gasping and holding her midsection. I quickly stepped back and finished dialing. I told the emergency operator that I needed police at my address because a woman had just assaulted me and a minor. The whole thing probably lasted less than 2 minutes, but it felt like forever. The kids were all staring with wide eyes. I told them to stay put because the police would want to talk to them. When the officers arrived, they separated everyone and took statements. The kids all confirmed what had happened. Then, just before we were finishing up, another neighbor came out of her house across the street. She told the officer that she had seen the whole thing from her kitchen window and that the woman had attacked the child first, then went after me when I tried to intervene. The officers nodded and walked over to Karen, who was still sitting on her lawn. One officer told her she was under arrest for assault and began reading her rights. When they put the handcuffs on her, she kept protesting that she was a victim, that we were all trespassing, that the kids were destroying her property, but nobody was buying it. The boy came up to me when the police car was driving away. He thanked me for helping him and said that he had been really scared. I told him he had done nothing wrong and that he had been polite and respectful the whole time. His friends gathered around and they all thanked me before picking up their ball and heading home. I finished giving my statement to the remaining officer and went back to my house. If she had just let the kid get his ball, none of this would have happened. But some people just can't help themselves when it comes to power trips. Now she's facing assault charges over a soccer ball that landed in her precious yard. I'm 29 and last year I was supposed to get married to my boyfriend of 3 years. We had everything planned out, venue booked, invitations sent, the whole 9 yards. But about 4 months before the big day, we both realized we were making a huge mistake. We sat down one evening and had one of those brutally honest conversations where we admitted we were more like really good roommates than life partners. The breakup was actually pretty mature, no screaming, no cheating drama, just two people who figured out they wanted different things in life. The problem was I had already spent nearly $4,000 on a custom wedding dress. I know that sounds insane to some people, but I had saved up for over a year to afford it. The dress was this gorgeous ivory silk number with hand-sewn beadwork that took the seamstress 3 months to complete. It wasn't just expensive, it was personal. I had worked with a designer on every detail, from the neckline to the length of the train. When the relationship ended, I couldn't bring myself to return it or sell it immediately. Too many emotions attached. So I carefully packed it in a preservation box and stuck it in my storage unit, along with some other stuff I wasn't ready to deal with. Fast forward to 3 weeks ago. My younger sister got engaged to her boyfriend of 2 years. She is 24 and works in social media marketing, makes decent money, definitely not struggling financially. We've never been super close because we're pretty different people. She's always been the type who expects things to just work out for her, and honestly, they usually do. Our parents have always been more lenient with her, probably because she's the baby of the family. She came over to help me organize my storage unit because I was thinking about downsizing to save money. We were going through boxes when she spotted the dress preservation container. She asked me what was in the box, and I told her it was my wedding dress. She opened it before I could stop her and gasped when she saw it. She gushed about how beautiful it was and said it was exactly the style she wanted for her wedding. I felt this weird protective instinct kick in and quickly closed the box. I told her it wasn't available, but she seemed confused and asked what I meant since I wasn't getting married anymore. I explained that it was mine and I wasn't ready to part with it. She got this look on her face like I had just told her the sky was green. She started going on about how I was just going to let it rot in a box and what a waste that was. I had to correct her and explain that it wasn't rotting since it was properly preserved, and it wasn't a waste if it was what I chose to do with my own dress that I paid for. She kept pushing, telling me to be reasonable because she could really use it and I was never going to wear it. I told her the answer was no. Then she tried a different approach and offered to buy it from me for half of what I paid. I repeated that I wasn't ready to sell it to anyone. That's when she completely lost it. She started yelling about how selfish I was being, and that it was just a dress since I wasn't even engaged anymore. I pointed out that she had just said it was exactly what she wanted for her wedding, so which was it? She got even more angry and accused me of being dramatic and petty before storming out of my apartment. 2 days later, my mom called. She said she'd heard about what happened with the dress and that my sister was really upset and thought I was being unreasonable. I explained that it was my dress, I paid for it, and I wasn't ready to give it away or sell it. My mom started questioning what I was going to do with it, asking if I planned to keep it forever as some kind of shrine to a relationship that didn't work out. I told her maybe, and that it was my choice. She suggested I should reconsider and said it would be such a beautiful gesture of sisterly love. I pointed out that my sister could afford her own dress, but my mom said that wasn't the point and that family should help each other. I argued back that she wasn't asking for help, but demanding my property. The calls kept coming. Then my sister started texting me pictures of other dresses with guilt-trip messages about how she'd have to settle for something cheap since her sister wouldn't help her, and how she found a knockoff version of my dress but it wasn't nearly as nice. Last weekend was the breaking point. I was at my parents' house for Sunday dinner when my sister showed up with her fiancé and our mom. They had clearly planned this ambush. My mom announced that we needed to settle this dress situation once and for all. I said there was nothing to settle because I had already said no. My sister then revealed that she had researched how much similar dresses cost new and found out they were like $6,000 now, so I could really help her out. I suggested she could budget for her own wedding dress like a normal adult instead. Her fiancé, who I actually like, tried to stay out of it, but my sister kept trying to drag him into the argument. She asked him to tell me I was being unreasonable and wanted him to agree that I should share with family. He diplomatically suggested that maybe they should just look at other options, but she refused and insisted this dress was perfect. Then she accused me of being spiteful because my relationship had failed. That crossed a line, and I asked her to repeat what she just said. She doubled down and said I was mad that my engagement didn't work out, so I was taking it out on her. I told her that actually I was grateful my engagement didn't work out, and what I was mad about was her thinking she was entitled to something that belonged to me just because she wanted it. My mom tried to get us to stop fighting, but my sister insisted she wasn't fighting and was just trying to reason with someone who was being completely irrational. I shot back that what was irrational was her literally demanding my $4,000 dress and calling me selfish when I said no. She argued that she had offered to pay for it, and I reminded her it was half price for something she'd admitted was worth $6,000 now. My mom then suggested we could work out a payment plan. I'd had enough. I announced that I'd made my decision and the dress was staying with me. I said if that made me selfish, then I guess I was selfish, but I'd rather be selfish than entitled. My sister threatened that I shouldn't expect to be in her wedding party after this. I told her I'd try to contain my disappointment. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, dragging her poor fiancé behind her. My mom gave me this disappointed look and followed them. Yesterday, I was talking to my cousin who works at the bridal shop, where my sister has been looking at dresses. Turns out she's been telling everyone that her rich sister is being cruel and won't share her expensive dress. She has been playing the victim to get sympathy discounts and freebies from vendors. The bridal shop owner felt so bad for her that she offered her a significant discount on a designer dress. My cousin also mentioned that my sister's future mother-in-law overheard her complaining about me to other customers and was not impressed. Apparently, she pulled her son aside and had some words about his fiancé's attitude toward family. And now there's tension between my sister and her future in-laws because they think she's spoiled and ungrateful. My mom called yesterday to tell me that maybe I should extend an olive branch because my sister was stressed about wedding planning. I told her that my sister had created her own stress by assuming she could have whatever she wanted without asking properly or accepting no for an answer. The dress is still in my storage unit and it's staying there until I decide what to do with it. I'm 25 and just finished my master's degree in engineering. It took me 3 years of night classes while working full-time at a tech company to get through the program. The last semester was brutal. I was pulling 12-hour days between work and thesis writing, living on coffee and determination. My parents watched me struggle through it all, so when I finally walked across that stage, they insisted on throwing me a small celebration. Nothing fancy, just a backyard gathering with close family and friends. My mom spent the whole morning cooking my favorite dishes, and my dad set up string lights around the patio. Everything was perfect until my cousin showed up. She's 27 and has always been the type of person who needs to be the center of attention. At family gatherings, she always somehow made everything about her latest drama, her achievements, her problems. She walked into the backyard without greeting anyone and immediately started complaining about the heat. She loudly said that no one should throw a party without fans or air conditioning. Keep in mind we had plenty of shade from the big oak tree, cold drinks and coolers everywhere, and it was actually a nice day. Nobody else seemed bothered by the temperature. My mom tried to be welcoming, pointing out the cold sodas in the cooler by the deck and the misting fan set up near the chairs. Karen just rolled her eyes and grabbed a drink without saying thanks. The afternoon got worse. She spent most of it making snide comments about everything. The decorations weren't fancy enough, the music was too loud, then too quiet. She even criticized the food my mom had spent hours preparing, claiming the potato salad tasted store-bought, even though my mom told her she'd made it from scratch that morning using our grandmother's recipe. Karen insisted something was different about it anyway. She kept trying to make everything about herself. When someone congratulated me on graduating, she'd jump into the conversation and remind everyone that she'd gotten promoted to senior manager 3 months ago. She kept saying that was a big deal too. When my uncle tried to redirect the conversation back to my graduation, she insisted that not everyone gets to be a senior manager at 27. This went on for hours. Every conversation somehow circled back to her promotion, her job, her accomplishments. I tried to ignore it and focus on the people who actually came to celebrate with me. Then came the moment that really set me off. My mom brought out the graduation cake she'd ordered. Nothing elaborate, just chocolate with congratulations written in blue frosting. Everyone gathered around when she lit the candles and told me to make a wish. I was about to blow out the candles when Karen suddenly pushed forward and asked if she could be in the photo too because she had a big milestone to celebrate as well. I thought she was joking. I actually laughed and asked what milestone she meant. She said her promotion was just as important as my little degree. The entire backyard went quiet. Even the kids stopped playing. My dad told her this was my graduation party and the photos were for me. She argued that she deserved recognition too, saying it wasn't fair that I got all the attention just because I went back to school. I told her she got promoted 3 months ago, and if she wanted a party, she should have thrown one then. She shot back that maybe next time I should think about including everyone when planning these things. She actually folded her arms and pouted like a child. A 27-year-old woman pouting because she couldn't be in my graduation photos. My mom tried to keep the peace by suggesting we take a group photo with everyone afterward. Karen said no, she wanted to be in the main graduation photo and called the whole situation discrimination. At this point, my college buddy, who'd driven 2 hours to be there, asked if she was seriously trying to hijack someone else's graduation party. She insisted she wasn't hijacking anything, saying she was family too and her achievements mattered just as much. I told her to throw her own party then. She stared at me for a long moment, then huffed and said that she could see she wasn't wanted there. She walked over to where she'd left her purse and started making a big show of leaving, saying this was exactly the kind of selfish behavior she'd expect from me. My mom told her she didn't have to leave and just asked her to let me have my moment. Karen said she got it. Some people's accomplishments matter more than others in this family. When she headed for the gate, she turned back one more time and told me that next time, maybe I should think about including everyone instead of making everything about myself. The irony was completely lost on her. After she left, everyone kind of stood around awkwardly for a minute. Then my dad broke the silence by saying that was really something. My uncle agreed that she'd always been dramatic, but that was next level behavior. We ended up having a great rest of the evening without her constant need for attention. The cake was delicious. The conversations were actually about my graduation, and I got some wonderful photos with people who genuinely cared about my achievement. 2 days later, my aunt called to check on me. She said she'd heard about what happened at my party and wanted to apologize. I told her it was fine and that Karen had just gotten a little carried away. But then my aunt told me that I should know Karen had been telling everyone that I deliberately excluded her from my graduation celebration and that the whole family was playing favorites. So in her version of events, she's the victim. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.